What's your name? Where were you born? And how old are you?
My name is Noemi. I was born and raised in the Bronx, and I am 43 years old.
What was your home life like?
Growing up, my home life, I would say, was one of fun. I came from a two-parent household, and my mom was dependent off of government assistance, and my stepdad was a janitor or custodial for HBO at the time. Never felt like we grew up poor, although my mom depended off the government. But I will say now, as an adult looking back, the household was very dysfunctional.
But your parents, I guess, didn't let you see that, or you didn't see it because your age. You don't think you
I
recognized it.
think because of my age, and I think, like, my mom had a temperament. She did have a temperament, but I think coming from a Latino household, right? Like, it felt normal.
It is normal,
It
or it
is,
was normalized.
or it was normalized. And I think now, in retrospect and being reflective and looking back and understanding my mom today, I would say that it was a very dysfunctional home.
Okay. Okay. Off of that, what were your parents like? Your relationship with them? Where did they grow up?
So my relationship with my mom, I would say, was a very loving one. Um, and I was very close and tight with her up until probably the age of 13. I guess, like, puberty and adolescence started to kick in, and I was trying to find my own voice and who I was at the time. And she was very strict. Um, she was born in Puerto Rico and then migrated here to the Bronx. And my stepdad is Jamaican. And I had a great relationship with him as well. He was a DJ, and we grew up in a home that was just filled of like music and partying all the time.
Okay. Um, was economics, credit, and budgeting ever a topic in the house growing up?
Not that I could remember. No, I just knew that my mom received money. My stepdad worked. But I can't say that we ever went hungry. I can't ever say that the lights went out, that we ended up in a shelter or anything like that. Like, so to me, I felt that we were
Good.
rich and we were good.
Did you get any type of allowance or anything for chores or anything?
I didn't get any allowance, but I never felt that I couldn't necessarily get what I wanted or what I asked for. But there were times that I think just you, as a child and as a youth, wanting to keep up with the status quo, right? There were times that we couldn't
Okay.
because my mom didn't have it at that moment.
And what year is this, you saying, when you're a kid in the Bronx?
I would say like maybe
Or,
the age of like 12, 13.
so it was mid 80s? I don't know math like that. I'm horrible.
Yeah, probably like the
Because the Bronx was kind of crazy.
yeah, the mid 80s. Yeah, the mid 80s.
Okay. Was there a strong work ethic instilled, and how did that shape you as so?
No.
Not at all. They didn't push you to go out and get a first job.
No, I pushed myself to get my first job. I started working at the age of 14, summer youth employment.
What motivated you to do that?
What
If the parents weren't doing it.
Yeah, what motivated me was the fact that there were things that I wanted, and I knew that sometimes I had to wait for the things that I wanted, and I didn't want to wait because there was a part of me that felt like bad and guilty, that my mom had to spend money on me. So I just wanted to be independent in that way and earn my coins. So
What was your first job?
my first job was at a office over by Crotona Avenue. It was through the summer youth employment, and I learned, like, I guess, reception work, secretarial work. So at 14, I think it was a pretty good job to
Seems
build
like it.
some foundation for later on
Yeah.
to get where I'm at.
Usually kids get part-time jobs bagging groceries, some
Yeah, no, this
some
was
medial job that
yeah.
doesn't really teach you anything.
Yeah, considering that it was summer youth, like I was already in an office setting.
Okay. Do you have any siblings, and what was the dynamics among you?
Yes, I am the oldest out of three. It's three of us, me, my sister, and my brother. The dynamics as kids growing up, my brother and we fought like crazy. I think that was
He's
just,
younger.
yes, he's a year younger than I am. I think that was learned behavior. So when I said the dysfunction early, I think
It was
that
taught.
plays it. I think it was taught, and I think it was mirrored, and it was my mom who was the aggressor. So yes, I would say that I came from a home that there was domestic violence, but usually when you think of domestic violence, you think of the man being the abuser, and it was the opposite. It was my mom who was the abuser.
Towards her husband or children, or all?
Both.
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 Okay. Um, so a lot of sibling rivalry.
Sibling rivalry.
Oh,
I
you like
think.
her better than me, mama.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
think
any
a
of
lot of
that?
triangulation. That's what we would call like
Meaning,
triangulation, meaning that you put one child against the other,
okay.
right? So you have the token child. I was the token child for many, many years. And then my brother became somewhat of the token child because he was the only boy. And the dynamic shifted. And then my younger sister never really appeared to be the token child in terms of from my mother's side, but she was like daddy's princess with her dad. And my mom would just put us against each other.
Intentionally, or do you think she didn't realize what she
I
was
don't think
doing?
that she realized what she was doing, so I think it was subconsciously. She still practices that method up until this day now.
Have you
We
ever
are
voiced your
adults all the
feelings?
time.
Yeah. How did she take that?
She's
she,
not receptive
she's not
to
accepting
it.
that it's her fault or that she's doing
No,
something to you.
it's she's a victim, and it's everyone else. And she also struggles with mental illness, so I think that it does make sense now.
So it's a little more difficult to get it across to her, having her go through what she's going through mentally.
Yes.
Okay. Your younger sister, what's your relationship with her?
We don't have the best relationship.
Has it always been that way, or did it develop?
I think it's always, honestly, I think it's always been that way. I'm 8 years older than she is, and I think that the age difference to some degree plays a major part. And I think that there's just some family trauma there and some healing that still needs to be done. But all parties need to be open to that. So sadly, the relationship is not one that I think is put out in the world of generally how sisters are with each other.
And it's usually not a love thing. It's more of a connection or a like, because you can't choose the family you're born into.
Right.
So it's not the fact that you don't love these people. You guys just don't click.
Yeah, no, I love my family. I recognize that everyone is situated differently. I think I'm in a position that I'm trying to break generational curses, and just some things that just may appear normal to others is just not. It's not how I view it anymore, and I think that there needs to be reciprocity, right? There needs to be this give and take, and that we're both or all parties are trying to heal together. When it's one person trying to do it,
but that you need all parties to admit or to accept their part. When they're not willing, like you said, to come to the table and say, okay, I also am at fault for some of this stuff.
Right.
It's hard to get that situation situated.
Right. And you can't also just come to the table one time, right?
No, it's continuous.
And be like, yeah, I get it, I understand. Yeah, and then you go back to the same behaviors and the same patterns. That's not...
You might have a barbecue after a while, but it didn't really get resolved. Because like you said, it's a growing thing. Because you have years and years of festering issues. You're not going to resolve it in one day.
Right.
But as long as you at least continue to make an effort, if they don't, you should always be comfortable in the fact that you put yourself out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, at this point,
at the end of the day.
Yeah, at this point, I'm definitely comfortable in it. I think that the fantasy is always like we'll all come together at some point and be kumbaya and life goes on. But I also accept the reality that sometimes that's just not that, right? And it doesn't stop the love that I have, but it will just allow me to continue in my own truth. You know what I mean? So
Keep you clear at least. Okay. What was your neighborhood like growing up?
So I grew up in Kingsbridge, the Kingsbridge area of the Bronx. I would say that the neighborhood, it felt safe at the time. Kids were outside. We were able to be outside. We were able to play. Um, I think the community was a community, and the community was very protective of the community. So it's like, your neighbor had the right to school you and discipline you in the event that your parents weren't around, where I think today that doesn't exist anymore. So for me, I felt like I grew up in a great neighborhood, at least at that time.
What was the demographics?
Latinos and African Americans.
Okay. What was school like for you? Grammar school, high school, college, if you went?
So elementary school was a nightmare. I was bullied,
Okay.
and I was bullied up until probably the first year of junior high school.
It's a reoccurring theme here.
Yeah, and I think it created a lot of the anxieties that I probably have, that I'm working on today, right? Because I think it impacted me then. I still could remember my first bully, and I think I still would have issues with her if I saw her, but I would understand probably where the bullying came from.
It's crazy. I've spoken to a few people so far. Like I said in one of my last interviews, the most confident looking person that I've interviewed. Knowing him personally, I would have never known. So you never know what everybody's going through, even the bullies. And I also say, you look back, like you said, if you were to see her, you probably have an issue. But if you could look back at the bullying, let's say a 10-year-old bullying, it's not that major. It's only because we're so young and we take it in like, oh my God, it's the biggest problem in the world. These 10-year-old kids are calling me funny names and da-da-da. But looking back, it sat in you and it hit you a certain way that you carry it to this day as if it was a major issue.
Yeah, I mean, but I do believe that I was taunted, you know what I mean? So I think, and I had anxieties of going to school, right? Like, I didn't want to go to school because I just didn't want to deal with what was going to be present that day in school, right? And I think not having an understanding of why wasn't I liked, or why was this person doing X, Y, and Z to me. But now that I'm older, yeah, if I saw her, I think initially I would have it will bring me back to that
It hit
7,
you that hard,
8-year-old, yeah, that 7 or 8-year-old girl. But I think, I mean, if her disposition is still the same, then that's a different story, right? But I think that I would want to have the conversation about like how she treated me, impacted me for so many years. I just think that at some point, like, what broke me out of that was another bully that I had in junior high school, and this time I couldn't take it anymore. So I felt like I had to fight. I had to fight and show that particular individual at that time, like, I'm done. You're not going to keep doing this shit to me. And maybe what has to happen is that I have to physically put myself in a position to show you that I'm about it.